Welcome to the Pinnacle Take Podcast with renowned recruiter and podcast host, Benjamin Mena. Get ready to take a ride with this dynamic network of professionals and seize the coveted chance for personal and professional growth.
I am so excited about this episode. The reason is because there are things outside of your control that you cannot change. But the question is, what do you do with the time, energy, and effort that you have when you deal with those things? And my guess today for this episode, we're talking about things on a national level, things that go through Congress, things that go through the Senate, things that go through the presidential desk that has a direct impact on his business. And there's a few things that he could do. He could freeze. Just be like, hey, let me figure out what happens with the market. Let me just stop doing it. Maybe just pull back. Or you can figure out where you can still win. And that's what he's absolutely doing. I saw his open rec load. He has, from everything that's happening on the news level, I thought his desk was going to be empty. No, he is busy as heck. And it's because of the work that he's doing. So Sean, I am so excited to have you on the podcast, buddy.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ben. I really appreciate the chance to catch up. I've been following you for a while. Love the show.
So real quick, before we get started, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Name is Sean Rigsby. I head up a firm here in Connecticut called Rigsby Search Group. Been a recruiter for 32 years. I focus on the environmental industry, consulting firms and stuff. Have placed a little more than 900 consultants in my career and, work pretty much nationally.
Perfect. Awesome. So that goes in the next question. How did you end up in this wonderful world of recruiting, the land of misfit toys?
The land of misfit toys. So that's a perfect segue for who I am. I came into this industry by accident, like pretty much everyone. I have an electronics background. My father had a vending machine company. So when I was in high school, I was the kid who had all the Pac-Man stuff in the garage. And I probably spent more time in the garage than doing my books. And, I was taking apart circuit boards, all that kind of goofy stuff. And then I kind of went down that path and got into office equipment. And so I was repairing office equipment and selling supplies. And I was pretty much the worst technician in Connecticut. I couldn't fix a thing. And my wife still laughs about it because I don't fix a thing in my house. I'm like, okay, go call so-and-so because I don't have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But customers love me. Then all of a sudden, after 6-7 years, I got laid off, and I'll be honest, I'm surprised I lasted that long, in all honesty, guy. When I say I was bad, I would leave parts on a copier or leave screws, and they're like, there's some screws on my machine. Is this okay?
Don't worry about it. Those are extra ones I brought, right?
Extra. Don't even give it a second thought. And so then I got let go. Obviously, we're talking, this is 93 now, and no internet. Everyone kind of looked at newspapers for stuff. And I interviewed through a couple of recruiting firms for similar jobs, had a couple of offers, I was burnt out. I was fairly newly married, just bought a house. I didn't want to travel anymore. And then I saw an ad for a recruiter and I'm like, okay, I could do better than the person I was talking to, I think, And so then I interviewed at a couple of places and I got hired by a company in Hartford. They were probably one of the largest, at that time, probably the largest agency, privately held agency in Connecticut. But I went through a couple of interviews and I didn't hear anything and I'm not making any money. And so all of a sudden I just go ahead and call up there and I go, hey, this is Sean Rigsby. Hi, how you doing? You interviewed me a couple of weeks ago. Wanted to see you made a decision, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was going to give you a call. We want to offer you the job. Now, whether or not that's the truth, or maybe he's just like, I feel bad for this guy. But he liked the initiative that, I called and he said the other thing, my first interview was a snowstorm and my wife is like, reschedule. I'm going, I'm not going to be that guy.
A snowstorm.
Yeah. My first interview. And I left it was only 20 miles away, but I probably left 2 hours early so I could get up there and stuff.
Wow.
They hired me and my boss wound up being like one of my best friends and biggest mentor. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but that's how I got hired.
Okay, so we're looking at just a few years ago, you started recruiting.
Yeah.
Like, what was those first few days like?
Pain. It was essentially 3 days of training, probably 2.5 days watching Tony Byrne tapes. And that's kind of how I grew up. And it was just like pounding into you. This is a phone business guy. Everyone was back then they just trained you as a full desk. And after 2.5 days, they send you to a desk. Okay, plan your day and let me see that. I have no freaking idea what the hell I'm doing and stuff. And the guy who started with me quit the very next day. I think he went into insurance. Who the hell knows? And it was, okay, does this look good, this plan? And they're like, okay. And it's just pounding the phone. And minimum 50, 70 calls a day. I was typically averaging around 70, give or take. Had to be on the phone 4.5, 5 hours. That was the goal. And they told you have to have a placement within 3 months. We have to see something where, tracking KPIs. And they did ongoing training, which I like, but, I'm one who needs to at least have an idea of what numbers I need to hit. Tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. So it was good that we had KPIs, but all of a sudden I didn't make my first placement until week 12. So I'm like, oh crap, I was telling my wife halfway through, I think I got to find another job because I really suck at this.
And this is like a placement that you had to go find the customer, find the client, and also fill it yourself?
Yeah, because the segue before that, because my background was electronics, they had me doing like light industrial or manufacturing. And I just hated it. I don't know, maybe they sensed that I really wasn't cut out for that. And they're like, hey, there's a market that's really growing. Would you be interested in doing environmental? And I'm like, sure. You're going to run through a wall. I didn't even know what environmental was. I couldn't even spell it. And
wait, so they didn't even have an environmental division?
No.
And you haven't made a placement yet. You're still in your first 12 weeks.
Yes.
And they wanted you to go start a brand new division.
Correct. But yeah, so I had to figure out what the hell environmental was. I had no idea what environmental company is or what an environmental person. Yeah, I thought maybe I ticked someone off and they dumped me in a black hole and just wanted to get rid of me.
I mean, that's a great way to get rid of you. It was like, hey, if you don't make a placement in 3 months, hey, you know what? We're going to put you in a brand new division, so you got to start over again.
Exactly.
Man.
But yeah, I was going to the library. There was a library near my office, so I would just go to the library and take out books on what an environmental consultant is, what's a geologist. What helped me is I found different associations that gave me a little bit of a head start. What environmental associations, geology or geologists or engineers, I asked to join those organizations or buy the directories, and just started again working my way through all the way to Z.
Okay, real quick, pause there. Were you getting a salary there?
Ooh. Salary was, now this is 93.
Just say it's a yes. Yeah, don't worry about how much.
12, 13,000.
Okay, so you were getting a salary.
Yeah.
When you saw those directories, like, hey, this could be the way in, did they buy it for you or did you have to buy it yourself?
I think they bought it. Yeah,
okay,
they signed me up for a subscription.
Okay, so at least they helped a little bit. I was like, oh, man, I thought they were like, let's drop you in a new division. You have to buy all your own stuff. Like, you're on your own. Like, we cannot wait to get rid of the Sean guy, dude.
We can write it off.
Tax write-off. Okay, so back into your first year. So with that, hey, here's 3 days or 2 days of watching a video, 1 day of being on the phone. They dropped you literally in a mosh pit, with a pit to attack the phones. Did they do that with everybody else? Like, how many people do you think they hired that year?
Funny you ask. So I had a buddy of mine who started right around the same time, and they used to keep a book on who they hired then, because we computers. And all of a sudden, it was like the end of the year, and we kind of looked. I started in March. My buddy started in May, and they hired about 100 people from the time in March to the end of the year. They hired 100 people. Me and two other guys were the only people that, stayed. And so
this doesn't sound like the greatest environment for success. Why did you stay?
I'll tell you, even though that it sounds not great, they were a very good company and very reputable. The training was good. I developed some pretty good relationships, and I was there for 19 years, Ben. Definitely liked the people. I started kind of seeing some success. I didn't know any better. So, you know how they say ignorance is bliss. So I just said, hey, let me grind it out. And I'll tell you, that first year was a struggle. I mean, I barely made any money. Thank God my wife was working.
So, like, what was one of the biggest things that you had to overcome that first year?
The biggest thing was just trying to get people on the phone. Learning how to be a recruiter is hard enough. Learning something that is just I never heard of was another thing. And it was just, there were so many ups and downs. My W-2, I mean, just getting by, I had bought a house. My W-2 that first year was only $16,000. And I was working at a liquor store. I was rookie of the year. My billings were about 60,000, I think, give or take. And I was the rookie of the year at the company. But yeah, I wasn't making any money. I mean, like I said, my wife was working, thank God.
Okay, let me unpack this. You were rookie of the year.
Yep.
Is it because you were one of the only people that lasted after the year?
It could have been a combo. Yeah. There were two other people. And that was pretty much it.
Coin flip. All right, we'll give it to Sean.
Yeah.
But you were also working part-time at a liquor store, but you saw light at the end of the tunnel, which is why you stayed.
Yeah. I did like the job. I knew I could be good at the job. The first year was tough. And there were a couple of times where I'd get called into the office, every time I got called in the office, I'm going, okay, is this the day, where are they going to let me go? And I didn't give that impression just because I was not successful. I was sounding horrible. I never sat at a desk or did sales before I got into this. And I'll be honest, I sounded like an idiot because there were people that were pretty successful. And so I'd kind of just listen to them. I go, okay, I got to sound like him. And they'd be all sounding like polished and go, hi, my name is John Smith and I'm an executive recruit, all that kind of thing. So I'm going, okay, I got to sound like that. And it sounded so fake and I just not me. And then I'm like, I just said, oh, screw it. I'm just gonna be myself. I'm loud. I say stuff inappropriate half the time. It's just, okay, you either love me or hate me. And then it kind of started clicking a little bit. I guess people found me funny and they kind of resonated with me. I'm kind of self-deprecating, so I don't know. It just clicked. And that's with that.
Okay. So good job on Rookie of the Year. Let's jump forward a little more in this career. Cause you were there for a good 19 years. How was your growth at that agency?
It was good. I mean, I started probably year 3. I got close to probably $100,000. Dollars, so which was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I think the most I ever did before I got into this business was maybe 25,000, give or take. And then things started kind of progressing. And then I was, made a non-equity partner after like 10 years. And then, so I wasn't a manager. I was just pretty much, a seller, doer, billing recruiter, and but I thought my progression was good. I liked the people I worked with. I mean, I don't mean to give the wrong impression. I really enjoyed it. When I left, that kind of there was a little bit of a nuclear bomb when I left. But when I decided to leave, but everything's all good now and stuff.
You were there for 19 years. You could have stayed there. Maybe forever. What spurred or even a reason to leave?
So it was a couple of things. One is I wanted more. For some reason, I had people coming to me, oh, why don't you just hang out your own shingle and all that? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm making good money and I have no headaches and all that. And then something just kind of clicked with me, and I needed something more. And then I went to the owner of the company and I said, hey, I'm really looking for something more. I really want to buy into the company. I want to be a real partner. And, I was willing to fork over my own cash. And he said, let me think about it. And then he got back to me and he said, I'm not ready to do that now. And I go, okay, that's fine. And then I remember we hit a big recession in '08. And we saw the company go from like 40 recruiters down to like 13 or 14. And then I remember my billings went down like more than 200,000 than what I normally billed at. And I was still consultant of the year. And the next closest person was like 150 behind me. It was depressing during that time. And then I just kind of started saying to myself, you look at most people who try to hang out their own shingle. Oh, I like to keep the money. I want to, it'd be nice. And I want to try things my way and all that. Because also I go to them and, try to come up with ideas and how to make my practice better or things for the company. And it was like, hey, Sean, that sounds good. Let me give it some thought. It never really went anywhere. So it's like, okay, I really didn't have a voice. And, it was like, okay, as long as Sean's billing, okay, good. That kind of thing.
Sean the cash cow. Okay, so I'm kind of curious. Like 19 years in, about the time that you left, did they change how they did recruiting and hiring? Or was it still the drop them in and watch some videos?
After I left?
Or like before you left? Like before?
Okay. It was still the same. It was still the same way. Everything was kind of the same way. Yeah. Oh. We had, it was like hire a group of people, see who survive, who makes it. And it was pretty much like that after I left. I loved my time there. I wish I left early. I wish I left sooner. Not because I've had my business now for 13 years. And I'm enjoying it most days. But I'm so glad I did make the switch.
So let's jump in. So you started your own firm, right? What was that first few months like? Hey, now everything is on me.
I kept everything very, very, very close to the vest. I didn't do anything. And then I had a person who worked with me and talk about feeling guilty. I was planning, obviously, how I was going to do this. And I had some mentors helping me and giving me advice. And I didn't tell anybody anything. I didn't tell any coworkers. I didn't tell any clients. I kept everything absolutely hush hush. I didn't even tell some family members, except my immediate family. And then all of a sudden, one of my buddies, who was one of my best friends there, he was doing civil engineering. All of a sudden he comes to me, hey, I called all my clients because we've been trying to get him to do more splits with me. He goes, hey, I just want to let you know, I told all my clients I'm no longer doing civil. I'm doing environmental. I'm on board with you, Sean. And this was 3 days before I was going to give my notice. And I'm going, oh no, don't do this to me, dude. Please. And I'm like, also, I remember going to my car, I called my wife and I'm almost in tears. The guy was like a brother to me. I'm like, what do I do? And ultimately I decided not to say anything. But I gave my notice like the next day. And because I was ready to give the notice. And then I remember when I went to my boss and I said, hey, I want to give my notice and I'm thinking about want to start my own company. And maybe I just explained it wrong because all of a sudden he's looking at me. He's going, what? And like, when? I'm like, today. I'm giving you my notice. And all of a sudden we were just, he was like shocked. And I was like, Ben, I was that guy no way in hell would you have ever thought I would have made a move. I was just very loyal. I've been married for 36 years. I was at that company for 19 here. I'm about as boring as it gets from that standpoint. And he's like, okay, let me think about it. And we were able to, he's like, are you still doing environmental? I go, yes. And we talked about, the separation, how that would work. And ultimately it worked out and all my clients followed me. I called them. I remember I went home. I had a beer. Actually, when I left, I called that guy who was my good friend. I said, hey, I got to talk to you. And then I spoke to him. He gives me a hug. He goes, you should have done it sooner. That kind of thing. And
that's a good friend. That's a good friend.
No,
you get a good work friend too.
Yeah, no. And so my boss goes, why don't you go out to lunch? Go talk with so-and-so. And, went out and, it was like 11:30. And I had a beer. I go, I need a beer. Yeah. And so we talked about it. We had some good laughs, went back. I knew what the thing was. Like, most of my personal stuff was already home. I was kind of slowly taking my personal stuff as the week was going on, because typically when they let someone quits or they let someone go, it's just, okay, pack up your stuff, we'll walk you out. And I already had most of my desk packed up, but I had to leave some stuff there. And he's like, okay, I'm going to walk you out, and you got to come back Saturday to get your stuff. And, what they wound up doing is they had a meeting at the office. They called everyone into the conference room at like 4:00 and said I left. Because they were like shocked, and then I even offered, because I had a pretty stacked hot sheet. Like when people quit, usually, their quota is up to here and they have nothing on their hot sheet. I had a pretty stacked hot sheet, and I even offered, I go, I'll tell you what, I'll close out the deals. You don't have to pay me, and I'll close all the deals. And he's like, no, we'll have so-and-so take care of your candidates. Like, oh, okay. All the candidates were calling me. He's like, Sean, what should I do? I'm like, well, you got to call so-and-so. He's like, no, just, can I run it by you? And so essentially I closed most of the deals, and I just said, don't tell them you're talking to me, that kind of thing. But like that first day when I got home, I had, I started just banging out calls to clients, letting them know what's going on. I already had an email set up and, a new work email. And I took my family out to Ruth Chris, to celebrate. And then I'm going, oh crap, I have no job. Okay, eat quick. Don't get the dessert. That.
Yeah, that extra dessert over there. No, we don't want it. Don't bring the menu.
Yeah, no, please.
Wine, house wine. Get rid of the wine list.
Yeah, I'm drinking water. Thank you.
So that's just awesome. Like, and then I know we chatted offline that like all your clients ended up down the road following you.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes into the power of relationships. And I definitely want to talk about that later. So like you've been in the business for just a little while, just a few years, but you've seen like the Great Recession. You've seen so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like we're coming off of the golden era of recruiting where all you had to do was just say that you were a recruiter and you made money. And things have changed. Like the tech market, we've had the tech bloodbath. Right now, you are dealing with a lot of political issues that is completely impacting your desk, your niche.
Yeah.
Like I'll let you say it in a second, but like I know when Doge went through my niche, like companies froze.
Yeah.
These things are outside of your control, these macro issues. And how do you, first of all, you stay focused, and then we go into like what the macro issues are?
And, this is probably one of my worst years. I'm not having a really great year, to be honest with you. And, I was reaching out to a lot of my friends. I'm a member of Pinnacle, and I'm sure we'll probably go into that later. But I was reaching out to a lot of friends for advice and guidance and all that kind of thing. But yeah, this has been through multiple things. But let's talk about, how things kind of blew up. Let's, with the current administration, you serve federal employees. And I know you do, federal work, government work. That just completely blew up. We were doing some work in renewables, renewable energy, like offshore wind, onshore wind. That stopped. And we have a client here on the East Coast. They lost, essentially 25% of their backlog just disappeared, where they had to do some cutbacks and all that kind of thing. Other things we were kind of going into, like we do a lot of work with like getting involved in super funds, and which is kind of, and I know you probably don't, your audience does know a lot of these terms, but there are super fund sites which are very highly contaminated sites. And that just kind of dropped. We're recruiters. We have to adapt, and we have to kind of switch gears and stuff. So, we kind of look at, okay, where is work going to be happening? Okay, we were doing this. Now we got to do this on environmental. And so now we're kind of, switching gears. And a lot of our core serves are still the same. I mean, the biggest thing I've seen too from this is confidence in hiring. We've been seeing a lot of that. Hiring processes dragging out. I just placed a person, okay, we're talking about the heyday where companies were making 25, 30% raises to people. I just placed a project manager, plus or minus 100,000, and they interviewed the guy 6 times. 6. And then it took 2 weeks to get the offer. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then we had a couple of things. About 80% of our work is engaged. Now, we made the switch to engaged, and we can talk about that later if you like. We had, Sean, just hold the check. The position is on hold. Can't do anything right now. Are you good with that? We didn't even start the search. And I just had a client last month send us a check for an engagement. We started it, and then they put it on hold. Like we were recruiting for not even 2 weeks, and then they put it on hold. And so we're seeing wacky stuff like that. And we're lucky some of our core services that we do recruit in, money is being allocated to those areas, but it's really, everyone's kind of walking on eggshells, particularly to hear about that big, beautiful bill, that one big, beautiful bill thing. I'm going to be doing, I know this is August. I don't know when you're going to be airing this, but we're going to be doing like a webinar. And essentially, I'm going to be talking about, okay, here's how this bill is going to affect people in the environmental consulting space. Here's what's going to drop. Here's where some trends are going to wing upward. What does that mean for you? We're actually putting that together right now and going to do a webinar on LinkedIn about it and, send out an invite and all that kind of thing. So, there's a lot. It is a wacky time from the government side, but you know what? We've seen wacky times, like you said, there has been a number of ups and downs with this business, and you got to just kind of roll with it. It's margaritas and Tums have helped me greatly this year.
So outside of margaritas, outside of Tums, like how are you, like shit's hitting the fan? Like how are you still staying focused, and how are you still driving revenue?
I'm not trying to get caught into, I try not to stay watching the news because it's all bad shit. It's easy to fall down a rabbit hole, especially for me. Mindset is so huge in this business. And, you try not to get sucked down that rabbit hole and go, oh crap, my world's blowing up. And trust me, I've had moments. And, but when you go through times like this, you got to kind of say to yourself, and my kid works for me now, it's like, you got to work twice as hard to get anywhere close to what you were doing previously. And if you're putting in the same effort when times suck, your results are not going to be anywhere where you want them to be. And so a lot of it is kind of just grinding it out, working smart, essentially every Monday, and then we have meetings twice a day, morning and the evening. Okay, what job are we working on? What's the quickest way to a send out? Who's going to hire the quickest? And qualifying those jobs. And we're just focusing on that and working a lot with reach out plans and all that kind of thing. It's still a phone business, I feel. But, you have to, but obviously it's texting now and emails. But it's just trying to work smart and getting rid of distractions. I put blockers on my computer, so I don't go on Facebook or all that other kind of stuff. I work in time blocks, kind of keep me focused on that. It's little things like that because I get distracted so easy. It's not even funny. I'm like, hey, look at that. It's so easy for me to get distracted. It must be the ADHD I have.
This really is a business that attracts people with ADHD.
Oh God, yeah.
Like we talked about Pinnacle. Like I know some of the Pinnacle people. Squirrel, and the whole room looks away.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe Alan might be the only one that just like stays focused. Alan and Sharon are just like, okay.
Yeah, good point.
Well, so anyway, so like back to being serious. So like in this stuff, like the craziness happening going on. I want to talk about business development, and I want to talk about relationship development too, because I think that's been a huge thing that you've done really well because you've had so many returning clients, this and that. And heck, when you left your job, everybody ended up following you. So like you're doing something damn good with relationships. So like BD and relationships, like what the hell are you doing?
I don't consider myself a sales guy. I mean, in all seriousness, not that I don't like the word sales. That's not the reason why I say that. I'm always consider myself more of a relationship person. I will call clients. I'm calling clients and, hey, Sean, I don't have a job order. I know it sucks right now. I know that. I'm just calling to see how you're doing. How are things? I know my clients. I know what's important. We talk about kids. We talk about sports, but I don't think every call, is me. It's, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the person I'm talking to. If I'm dealing with crap and the market sucks, I'm sure they're doing the same thing, especially during a recession, if someone's experiencing a recession. I mean, I call clients all the time. I just spoke with someone today who I haven't worked with for a very long time. And he's like, hey, and my call was, hey, Bob, it's Sean. What has it been, like 30 years? Come on, man. Let's catch up. And he called me. He's like, hey, how you doing? And we were just bullshitting for 15 minutes or so. I found, and it's little things like that, with clients there. But like in new business development, we're trying something different. I'm an old dog learning new tricks guy. I know you had your AI summit, and good thing my kid works with me because the only thing I know about AI is this spelling AI. And it's everyone's on chat and all that kind of stuff. So I'm using chat where I downloaded, like trying to find new companies. And I know a lot of companies, but I'm trying to work a little bit smarter. So I kind of downloaded like my top 5 clients. Here are my top 5 clients. Here's their SOQ. Here's their website. Here's the services they do. Find me 50 companies that are similar to these companies. And it came out with a bunch of companies. A lot of them I knew, but some of them I didn't know. And I said, hey, I'm more interested in these geographies. And it gave me a bunch of clients. And then I go, okay, here's titles I work with. Can you go on LinkedIn? I think, I kind of gave the website and, I threw some LinkedIn stuff. And I go, can you find me people with these titles and that work at these companies? And it gave me a slew of things. And I'm going to forward it over to my admin and I'll have her get me the contact info and all that kind of stuff. And that's how we're doing marketing right now. I've reached out to a few people. I had a company in North Carolina call me about a job. They called me and they were referred to me by a former client that I hadn't worked with in 10 years.
That's good.
And the only reason why I stopped working with them is they won't go engaged. I kind of switched away from contingency. And
let's dive on that real quick.
Sure.
So how long were you contingent before you went engaged?
Oh God. I was, I've had this probably 25 years, give or take. 20, 25 years, all contingent.
Why change?
It happened about 10 years ago. I got into Pinnacle about 10 years ago. And so a lot of people were doing retainer and engaged. And I always found that fascinating. My former company really wanted to stay contingency. So they really didn't want to go down the engaged or retainer route. And so I started talking to people who were having success and how do I even do that? And learned how to do it. And then I also saw the benefits. You're having clients, with skin in the game. I can't remember where I read it, but the average search firm agency, most firms work contingency, but you're only filling about less than 25% of your jobs on contingency. And all the risk is on you, the recruiter. I mean, the biggest expense we have as a company or recruiters is positions, searches that go unfulfilled. So you're working for free, which, is like roulette. We all live it. But when we went engaged and we started tracking it, our fill rate went up to like 71, 72%.
That's huge.
If they're giving you money, they're going to be working with you. How many times you call a client, hey, I need some feedback, and it's dead air, or your candidate, we're not going to hire Ben. He's not right. Can you tell me why? I just don't know. The manager just said wasn't good.
Did your fees go up during that transition too?
Our fees did go up, and we made a conscious decision to do that. So what we wound up doing is it didn't go because of engaged. It just said I got tired of dealing with staff level people who were taking offers and just going, hey, I'm going to go get a counter. And now counters happen all the time. And I don't fault the person. Hey, if I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I want to get as much money as possible. I get it. But I think it's a maturity thing. And my son had a candidate. They gave the candidate, this was during the heyday thing we were talking about, gave the candidate like a $25,000 raise because we were preaching to them, I'm telling you, this person's going to get the living hell beat out of them with a counter offer. You need to go big or go home. And they made a kick-ass offer. And then the company countered her. She stayed. But before she went for the counter offer, she calls my son and says, hey, Evan, I want to thank you for getting me this offer. I just want to be fair to you because you've been great with me. I'm going to go to my boss with the offer letter. I'm going to ask for a counter offer. And if they give it to me, I'm going to stay. And I want to thank you. And just like nonchalant and being polite about it. And then she did take the counter. And then she sends my son a $500 Amazon gift card as a thank you. He sent it back. I told him to send it back. But that was kind of the light bulb moment where I said to myself, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. So I just made a conscious decision. The lowest position we're going to work on is 100. And then we're going to market higher level people. So last year, our fees went up a little more than 80%, have gone up more 80%. And our average salary place last year was about $173,000.
Nice. Okay, so going back to your son, he got that $500 Amex gift card.
Yep.
Did he want to keep it?
Hey, it's 20. It was 26. Of course, he wanted to keep it. What do you think? Oh no, but go ahead.
Why did you say that he should send it back?
I think it's clients pay our fees, and it was just a thing with me, and I don't know. It just felt wrong.
Okay.
In my eyes, and I just said, hey, thank him. But I don't think that's right to do that. And I just recommended he send it back. It was here's why you need to send it back. But it just felt wrong.
Do you think that difference in not taking advantage of that gift card, do you think that's going to turn into work down the road?
No.
Okay.
But let me take that back. That candidate did refer someone to my son that we did place. I'm sorry. Yeah. So that person did refer someone to him and he did place that person.
Oh, there you go. That's way better than a $500 Amex gift card.
Yeah.
Okay. So we covered a lot, and I know I definitely want to leave some time for like the quick fire questions that don't need to be quick answers. But before we do that, is there any places that you want to go deeper on that we didn't cover enough of?
One of the things two things. I think you need to put yourself, when you're a recruiter, yeah, we're all here to make money. We're all here to make placements, but you really have to understand the person you're talking to, whether it's the candidate or the client, and be a straight shooter. I mean, I just placed a person in upstate New York with one of my best clients. They wanted to get me an engagement for the position. And I said, let me do some research on the area and see there. And I did some research on the area, and it was a very, very soft market. There were no candidates out there where they wanted. It was up towards Buffalo, New York, Buffalo, Rochester, New York area. And what they were looking for, it was just, I told them, I'm going to pass on taking an engagement because I don't think I can fill this job. And that's not fair to you. And they said, thank you. And I really appreciated it. And I'm working on a more senior position for them. And the funny part is I'm recruiting on that senior position. I came across a person that they were looking for originally, and they just hired that person, which is funny as all hell. But I wouldn't take the engagement because I didn't think we'd be successful. And if you're going to be able to do something, let your client know. And I think that's something that resonates. I think you got to be honest with your clients and your candidates, and you got to ask hard questions. I don't think people ask hard questions. I'll be honest with you. And, I think people kind of stick their head in the sand and, I hope. And I'd rather walk away from a deal in the beginning than get all the way to the altar where they want to make an offer. And the candidate really wasn't on board. And then you got to start all that over again. I don't know if that's a light bulb moment, but I think sometimes, especially when times are tough, you're just trying to make stuff happen. But I try to kind of because change jobs sucks. I'm working with a person right now in New York City in the mid twos, and I'm going, why do you want this job? What's the thing you got some concern on? There has to be. I don't think we ask hard questions, and then those things come back and bite us, sometimes. And I learned that the hard way because I've lost a lot of deals early on by not doing that kind of stuff. And
what's the hardest question that you normally have to ask within the recruiting cycle?
With a candidate?
Yeah, with a candidate.
I would say probably the hardest question that is, obviously we go through the interview prep and then, just kind of pushing them and just doing qualifying questions, evaluating. We talk counter, but I mean, the hardest question is really, why do you want this job? I want to see a candidate come to me. If I have to chase a candidate, it's like push pull. If I'm going after the candidate and chasing the candidate more times than then, that's not going to work out in a positive light. And I even say, I'll say to a candidate, I don't think you're interested in this. And, I think we've all done it. We've had that, what do we call it? The takeaway. And that's probably one of the harder ones for most people, including myself, and go, Ben, I really don't think you want this job. And that's okay. Let's walk away from it now. But, can you tell me, no, Sean, I'm interested. Okay. Why? And I hope you don't mind me being honest, but I'm just getting a sense that maybe this isn't the right thing for you. And if not, that's absolutely fine. I'll find someone for it. That's what I get paid to do. But I want to make sure, I'm putting you in a position where I don't want you to say to yourself 3 months into it going, oh my God, what the hell did I do? I say that all the time to candidates. And so I guess that's probably the hardest question. You ask me what time it is and I tell you how the watch is made. I give long-winded answers. Sorry.
How is your watch made? No, just kidding. Jumping over to the quick fire questions, they don't need to be quick answers, but you've been in this game for a while. You're part of Pinnacle.
Yeah.
You have recruiters reaching out to you probably because of your visibility online. Let's just say one of them hits you up and it's just like, hey, I'm just starting my career in this world, just became a recruiter. If you could give me one piece of advice, what would it be?
A couple of things. One is, and I remember this was what was told to me, is don't get too high, don't get too low. And when the shit is hitting the fan, excuse my French, don't get too bummed out there. Learn to get on that phone and learn to pick up that phone and don't take things personally because you're going to get a lot of hangups. I work in the environmental field and, I've had plenty of people drop F-bombs at me and I'd call them back and go, you're having a really tough day. Maybe you should be talking to me. I like reading books too. And this is one quote I like is this guy, Darren Hardy, I follow. And he did a book called The Compound Effect. And one of the things he was talking about, he was a sales guy. And he was talking about, he was bitching and moaning. Someone, a deal blew up and stuff. And he was playing to his mentor. And he was like, and all of a sudden his mentor goes, are you done? And he's like, okay. And he asked him, he goes, would that person cry at your funeral? And he's like, what? I'm not dead. He goes, would the person cry at your funeral? No, of course not. So the only people you should care about are the people that would cry at your funeral. So don't worry if someone hangs up the phone on you. Don't worry if someone says, leave me the hell alone. Their loss. And that kind of stuck with me. That thing kind of always stuck with me. We're calling strangers if, they tell you pound sand or whatever. Okay, they're lost next. That kind of thing. Don't take things personally if you're a new recruiter because you're going to make so many mess ups and you're going to put your foot in your mouth. And so you're going to get more crappy calls than good calls.
So you've been part of Pinnacle for what you said, 10 years now?
10 years.
What does Pinnacle mean to you?
Oh God, it's more than I could ever imagine. It's 80 recruiters who are just very, very good at what they do. Everyone's excellent, but everyone wants to see you be successful. And we get together twice a year for meetings and we just talk about how to get better. We talk about our problems. We talk about our industry. We share information. You've been to a couple of the meetings, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these people have become some great friends of mine. And like I tell you, I'm not necessarily having my best year. And, the year will finish up good. And I was picking up the phone and I called a number of them. I go, please tell me why. I sent an email, can I use you as a sounding board? And I said, please tell me why I shouldn't just pack it up and sell hot dogs at the beach with cold beer. I can't, I'm just pulling my hair and I don't have much hair left. And they were spending time with me and going, okay, what's happening here? What are you doing? Okay, have you tried, and just, we talked things out. And it was great. I could pick up the phone and, ask someone for advice on, okay, here's what's going on. Like, right now it sucks, but you can pick up the phone, you can bounce ideas off people. The best peer-to-peer group I was ever a part of. And, when I started my own company, I didn't have that anymore because I left my old company. Even there were only probably 2 or 3 people I would really ask advice if I needed to bounce an idea off of someone. It's great, where you're talking with someone who's been through the same stuff you've been through. And, and they have different ways to figure it out and such. But no, it's great. I'm looking forward. I'm getting a couple of months. I'll go and we have a meeting in Kansas City. So looking forward to catching up with folks and grabbing a good steak.
Yeah, that is a great place for a steak.
Never been down there.
Kansas City barbecue. What is one of the toughest challenges that you've had to work through yourself?
This year, the past couple of years, I would say it's been candidate engagement because we don't have a problem getting job orders, but getting candidates to call you back or engage, that's been the bigger struggle. And we're trying different ways to, with scripts and email reach outs and texting. We do a lot of video. We do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn as well. But getting candidate engagement is probably the biggest pain point. It's easy to get names. That's not the hard part. And also, we're seeing for this year, we're seeing the hiring cycles dragging out. And just when you have a candidate, all the candidates, at least in my world, hey, you talked about the heyday where companies were throwing insane offers at people. We're going, those offers aren't there anymore. We do a salary survey, that's just strictly for my world, environmental consulting. And I'm sending it to candidates and go, hey, here's what the survey said last year, because we can't ask what people are making, but the average salary, it's gone back to reality, maybe 10% tops now. That's what the survey came out with. And I was letting candidates know, I was publicizing it on LinkedIn, but candidates still think, hey, I'm making 80, I'm looking for 110. Okay. Can I ask where you got that number?
From 2022.
Yes, exactly. So, we're fighting that. I'm sure others are too.
They got it from TikTok.
Yeah.
I remember the days of 2022. Was it work talk? Look at this, my office. I'm not doing anything. I just got a 200K raise. Yeah, those videos have disappeared.
Yeah, I bet you saw some crazy raises in your world.
GovCon. Sometimes it's the race to the lowest. The government wins the work to the lowest bidder.
Well,
so we were losing people to the Amazons and all that stuff. And I'm like, but you have a TSSCI and a full scope poly. I want to come hug you. Nah, I'm going to Amazon. I'm like, I get it. You get to work remote. You got a $75,000 pay raise and you don't have to sit in a skiff.
Oh God.
Anyways, enough about me, but okay. How is it like having your son being part of your company?
Wow. And I never expected it. I never asked them. I mean, they grew up and it was weird. And I still struggle to switch from that dad hat to that boss hat there. And I mean, it's been great. He's been here for 5 years. I've had to, really learn how, just think of him as an employee, and talk to him and be a little bit more honest and going, okay, that call really sucked. Here's why. Instead of hey, you're getting there, or, oh, that wasn't bad. I'm also being more numbers driven with him now. Hey, you need to pick up your calls, or, You only had one send out this week. Okay, let's take a look at what's on your desk. And I'm not saying what I do is perfect, and I'm getting better at it, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, it really is. And, I was shocked he wanted to work with me. So I guess I didn't torture him as his father all those years. So I guess, he wanted to come on board. But he even asked my wife first, hey, I think I want to do what Dad does. And my wife is like, okay, why are you talking to me? Go talk to him. And I talked about all the nightmare scenarios. Here's the good stuff. Here's the bad stuff. I maybe exaggerate a little bit of the bad stuff to see if he really wanted it. And I said, okay, let's test it out for a year. And so I was working remote all that time from home. And then after a year, he said, hey, I want to do this. So then we got an office, and I had to buy office furniture. And I said, are you sure? Because I'm about to spend some cash now, and I prefer not to. And we have an office now. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, it is.
What is one of the greatest things about working with your son?
It's watching him actually learn and seeing him progress, but we've gotten closer. We've gotten closer too, and which is cool. And he was always kind of a little bit more introverted and not as outgoing, and he's kind of made a switch, and he's really very out because we have to be more proactive. So I mean, it's great watching him evolve just personality wise and seeing him progress as a recruiter. And now we're talking about succession planning, and I just check under my car regularly to make sure the brake lines aren't cut. So I with that. You like that one, huh?
Oh, that was good. That was good.
No.
I hope they're not cut today.
When this does air, if I'm not, and you try to reach out to me and go, Sean, and I don't respond, okay, there you go.
Oh, he just signed the paperwork over last week. That's what happened to him.
Yeah, right.
Well, anyways, so back to the last question. It's always my favorite question. You talk to a lot of recruiters. You get asked a lot of questions. What is a question that you wish a recruiter would actually ask you, but they never do?
Have you ever had to fire a client, and why? I had to fire a client. Yeah, because we don't want to fire clients. You're going, oh my God, I need all these clients. Well, I fired a client that was the biggest pain. I'm not going to say their name, but they were probably the biggest pain in the ass I ever dealt with. But you send a candidate over, they don't get back to you for 2 weeks. They interview a person. Okay, we're not interested. Tell me why. I'm too busy, and don't give you an answer. And then, it was just always a struggle. And then all of a sudden, I remember working on a job, and I sent a candidate, and then they call me back. Hey, I want to see so-and-so. Well, he's got an offer with another company right now. You guys never got back to me. He goes, hey, wait a second. You need to send candidates only to us and no one else. And I go, wait a second. Your contingency. Put me on retainer and I'll do that. And he goes, I'm not doing that. And then I go, well, then, if I have a candidate, I'm going to be sending them to a number of places. You didn't get back to me. And then he dropped a couple F-bombs. And the guy was a pain in the butt. And then I said, that's absolutely fine. I'll see you later. And then I started recruiting out of there. I made more money recruiting out of there than placing. And then they blocked my email from their servers, so I couldn't, send an email. It wasn't a big issue. And then we were at a conference in Denver, and one of their guys saw me. And it was just so happened, it was perfect timing. I was actually making an offer to someone, and all of a sudden the guy goes, Sean? And it was a guy from this company. And he's like, what can we do to have you stop recruiting us? I go, put me on retainer, 40%, and I want an upfront engagement of $150,000. I never heard from him again.
I love it. I love it.
And I've placed a number of people from this company and made a lot more money that way. So if you have a crappy client, fire them. It is freeing.
I absolutely love this. Sean, we've covered a lot. We've covered your early days of you winning Rookie of the Year because you're one of the only people left standing.
Last man standing.
Last man standing. Here's your trophy for it. We talked about you like starting your business, but like most importantly, like in your world, the shit is literally hitting the fan. The market is like almost like at a standstill. You kind of like walk us through some of the things that you were having to do to stay focused. I think one of the most important things that you did was ask for help to your peer group. But we've also talked about the effort and the work that you have had to put in, and how you've had to shift gears, be more visible on LinkedIn, tell more stories, make calls that actually aren't focused on a sale, focus on the human relationship. We've seen this through every single down cycle. Those that are doing the most touch points, when it goes back up again, the most touch points are coming back at you. So it sucks, but you're still planning on having a great year, but you're really setting yourself up for the future. And I think this is a story that we needed to share, because not every market is having a heyday. Not every market is having a great time. We always talk about mindset and how your effort and energy, like you focus on that, but there are things outside of your control. And we talked about how to work through that. So Sean, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story today.
I appreciate you having me. I mean, this has been a lot of fun. It's not, I don't do a lot of these. I've done a couple, but no, I appreciate you having me on and, asking me to be part of this. This has been a blast.
So for the recruiters out there, go crush it. Go chase your dreams. We only have a few months left in 2025. So draw a line in the sand, put your head down, and go crush it the rest of the year. See you guys later.